In this second video, we're going to observe how the Rebreather World do-it-yourself PO2 controller behaves when you boot up and you skip through all of the calibrations because it held its last set, and we're going to move on and look at the options that are available. We'll turn it on by taking away the magnet again. It'll go through its splash screens, give us the option to set the HUD intensity. We're going to keep it where it was because it saves as well when you reboot. So we're just going to push button number 1 and skip setting that. And we're going to sit through the rest of the calibrations. You can see they're the same as they were before. And here we are back at the confirm set point and go to dive mode screen. We're going to accept, and I'll show you how to go to options once you're already in dive mode. If I push button 2 at this point, then I go directly to the options. We push 3 to accept, and we go to dive mode just like where we were from before. To get to options, we just push our button 3, and we go into options mode. Notice that backlight comes back on so we can see what we're doing. It gives us all 3 PO2 readings from each cell. Now these will constantly update, so even if you stay here, you still have a real-time PO2. It tells us what our HUD set point was set for. It tells us what our cycle time is. That's the number of seconds between injections if you have the O2 set in automatic mode. And we have what the O2 set point is. You can see here that by default it starts out somewhat below the HUD set point, so that it starts out, once you enable the O2 auto mode, as a parachute control. Once we're at our options, you can see that button number 2 is an instant back to dive mode. Button number 1 moves us on in the progression of options to set. We'll push button number 1 and go to the next option, which is set point. We noticed before that since we're running on the cell simulator with a nominal PO2 of 1.0, that with the default 0.7 set point, that we had all red LEDs on the top telling us that we were way high, way above what our set point is. So we're going to move our O2 set, or our HUD set point, so that it matches pretty close to what we actually have coming in from the cell simulator. So now that we're at the set point set, we push the button 3 to set the value. You can see that it's set 0.7, which is where we are now, and we'll increment it up. Increments by 0.05. And there we are with a set point of 1.0. We accept that. We move on to the next option, which would be the cycle times. 6 is a pretty good default, that's why it's set there, and so we're not going to change that, but it changes the same way. Button 1 to move it up, button 2 to move it down, and we'll accept, and then we can move on to the next item, which would be our auto O2 mode. This is just a yes or no. Button 1 says yeah, we're going to put it in automatic control, and then we can accept. If we decide to change our mind or we didn't want to put it there, we can go back and button 2 turns it off. We'll leave it off for right now. Then we can go on to the next item to look for. And if we were going to run in automatic mode to where we had our electronics enabled, then we'd also probably want to set our O2 set point. We could either set it the same thing that we have our HUD set point to and run in an actual ECCR mode of control, or we can set our O2 set point below what our HUD set point is so that we could fly manually at what we want to set the HUD to, and then have the electronics come in truly a parachute operation. Again, this is button 3 to set the value. This is where it started as a default. We're just going to accept it for right now since we're not in automatic mode. We'll come back and do that in another video. The next item we have is we have switch change set up so that as you descend, you can change both the HUD set point and the O2 set point at the same time to a default that's pretty reasonable for either descent or on the reverse when you come up and ascend. You can see here the way the menu's set up, that your deep set points are button 1 and that your shallower set points are button 2. So on descent you'd push button 1, and then when you want to flip it around and on ascent you can push button 2, and that way it saves the time of having to actually go and manually set HUD and O2 set points separately. We'll accept where they're at. It tells us our HUD set point at 1 and our O2 set point at 0.5. Mostly because that's where we just set them. We'll accept this and come back to look at it once we go and enable our O2. Next item is backlight. Sometimes it's easier to see things or you want the backlight to stay on. It gives us the option to turn the backlight here on the LCD display so that it stays on. We accept that. But, excuse me. Go on to the next item, and we have a solenoid test. Regardless of whether you have your O2 enabled in an automatic mode, you do have the option to test the solenoid. You'll see on the display when it's in dive mode, there'll be a little X come up in here, and there's a little LED on the power board, but they're kind of out of range of the video at the moment. Hopefully you can hear the tick of the solenoid as it comes in and out. It's a 400 millisecond test. Which of course is optional. You can test it if you want. It is there. So last screen gives you the option to either rerun the options, go back to dive mode. It also gives you the option that if you found that you really need to reset your HUD LED intensities, for example, you needed them fairly bright to calibrate perhaps, and then you go down and you're doing a rec penetration or something of that sort and they're just too bright, it gives you the chance to go back and actually restart at the beginning of the program to where you can dim your HUD LEDs and progress through, and it makes it a little easier maybe on the rest of your dive in a darker area. Otherwise, we just go right back to dive mode, and this time you'll see that the LCD backlight is going to stay on. Our set point's at 1. Our PO2s are just what we calibrated to, and you'll notice that they're within 0.05 so that we have just solid greens on our HUD LEDs. In our next video, we'll look at how the HUD displays different levels of how close we are to set point and how we turn some of the other items on. Thank you for watching.